Hi there, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the Emergency Relief Community Sport and Recreation Grant webinar. This is actually our fourth webinar. We started on Tuesday. We ran 2 on Tuesday and 2 today on Thursday, and we're going to be probably having another one in a couple of weeks that we'll speak about shortly. My name is Tommy Wharton. I'm the Senior Project Lead on this specific emergency grant with the Ontario Sport Network. I'm joined tonight by 2 colleagues that are also working on this project, Bianca and David, and they're going to introduce themselves right now as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bianca Bond. I'm with Ontario Sport Network, and I am the manager for the National Sport Trust Fund and Digital. And on to David.
And I'm David Segal, and I am with Impact North, the ad agency who handles marketing and advertising for OSN, and we put together the grant application system that you'll be using.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you, David. So right off the top, I think it's important that we thank the Government of Ontario, specifically the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries, who were responsible for investing in this grant. So this grant is a one-time application-based financial relief fund targeting community-level sport and recreation organizations, clubs, teams, leagues, and associations who have sustained losses due to the impacts of COVID-19. So tonight we're going to walk you through the what, the why, and the how regarding this grant and the application system, if you will. David's going to actually spend some time walking you through the online application. We'll talk about the eligibility requirements, share some key timelines, and we'll also save room at the end for specific questions from everyone that's on this webinar. We are also taping this webinar/info session, and we will be posting this webinar tomorrow on the OSN webpage. Also on the OSN landing page, there's right underneath the information about the grant, there's actually 17 frequently asked questions that are quite in-depth, and we troubleshooted all the possible permutations of what maybe people would be thinking about this grant in areas of perhaps challenged about whether they're eligible. So there's a long list there, but we're looking forward to people's questions tonight, as well as there's the ability to directly email grants@ontariosportnetwork.ca for direct questions following this webinar. So just to put into context, I'm just going to do another share screen here. On a second, just want to put into context this actual grant that was actually launched on, hold on a second here, that was just launched on on the 4th. Second here. Here we go. Everyone see this?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So, I'm just trying to get that next slide. There we go. So sorry about that delay there. On March 8th, the ministry announced an envelope of funding of $30 million to the sport and recreation sector. So this was a fantastic news to everyone because obviously the last couple of years have been extremely difficult and challenging the sport and recreational sector. This $30 million funding envelope is broken down into 3 ways. $20 million was allocated to the PSOs, which are the provincial sport organizations, and the multi-sport organizations, to distribute to their member clubs. $7 million was distributed to the Ontario Sport Network for this specific grant that we're talking about tonight. And then there was also a $3 million envelope to the OHL, respective of their athletes and scholarship programs. Just because in the previous webinars that we've had, there has been some members of PSOs that have taken part in this webinar. Please stay on the webinar if need be, because there could be the opportunity, but for funding in special cases. But for the most part, the channels of your funding, if you're part of a provincial sport organization, is through your respective PSO. And actually on their website right now, you'll be seeing specific grant application process relative to that. So I just wanted to put that into context, and there'll probably be some questions a bit on that later. And I know there's a specific area of the eligibility that we'll go into further depth later on. This grant, before I hand it over to David, when we were designing the application system, we made sure that this application online platform is succinct, it's user-friendly, and it's efficient. But make no mistake, we were also capturing key data and financial information and information about your club that is relative to the pandemic and the situation that your organization has experienced over the last couple of years. Ultimately, grants will be issued to eligible organizations that demonstrate financial need and a strategy to use that over 500, maybe upwards of 1,000. But it is an exciting grant. It's a much needed grant. We look at this as an opportunity for organizations to get back on their feet and to stabilize their programming. So without any further ado, David, I'm going to pass it over to you, and you're going to start with the actual online application. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. So, ladies and gentlemen, so we've gone through 3 of these webinars thus far. We're going to make them all available so that you can view them. The first 2, I really went detailed step by step through all of the processes. In the interest of saving some time and allowing for more Q&A, I will blast through this at a faster pace. Again, download the other 2, and then of course we're always available via email for support or questions if you have them. So when you click from the Ontario Sport Network landing page into submitting an application, you get to a login page here. If you've already signed in, no problem, just go ahead and sign in. But obviously your first step here should be signing up. There you're going to enter your first name, your last name, your email, confirm your email, phone number, and then you're going to create a password following these steps to make it rather secure. And then you click create an account. Once you create an account, you'll get a message here that says, thank you for signing up. Please check your email. We're going to send you an email to verify that your address is accurate, because obviously we want to make sure that you are getting the updates to the right address. So you'll check your email address, which will have a link. You click the link and it will say, thank you, your account is verified. And that will take you to the sign in screen where you will fill in your information. So obviously you will have just made this password, so you should know what it is. Obviously, if for some reason you have a problem, you can click forgot password and reset your password. Now, the first time you log in, it's going to take you straight to a screen here where it's going to ask you for a little additional information about you, the applicant. So you're going to fill in your address. This will already be populated with your phone and email. And then you're going to start entering your organization name, your personal title, and then what year you assumed the position. Now, if you happen to represent multiple leagues or clubs or potential applicants, you can add additional organizations. You just click on add another organization, put in the full name, no acronyms, please. Put in your full club, academy, league, team name, your position and your title, and your year of assuming that position. I'm going to delete that because I don't actually have a third one. And then after you've filled this in, you will be asked to read the privacy policy and the terms of use, which is all available here. It's just about the privacy and the fact that you're submitting this information to us. You have to check mark that box. And then of course, anti-spam legislation allowing us to email you and contact you afterwards. So once you've submitted that, you can click here to submit your first application. So I already have an application in progress. The great thing about the system, if you want, you can come back to an application later. You can save your progress. You don't have to submit all at once. So obviously, if you want to submit a new application, you can only submit one application per organization. So I already have one in place for slow pitch. If I were to try and create another one, it's going to tell me you can't do that. You're already in progress. So I would have to start a new one for my other organization. Or if I would like to go back and I would like to say, okay, you know what, let's continue on the slow pitch one. I just click continue here and I go ahead. So the application is rather simple. There's 4 steps to it. The first is ensuring your qualification. And on this page, these are all check boxes showing that you must have all of these apply to you in order to be eligible for this grant. So the first one is that my organization, which is defined as community level sport recreation organization, club, team, league, and association, directly delivers and is responsible for operations of a sport or recreation activity in Ontario. So clearly it's Ontario Sport Network. This is a grant for Ontario. If you're not operating or serving in Ontario, you don't apply. Second is I can provide full end-of-year financial statements. So audited year-end financials, approved year-end financials, financial review engagement letters, financial review statements, etc. from 2019 to 2021. They will show revenues, cash balances, proof of loss, etc. So again, If you cannot present those, you can present receipts and invoices that demonstrate costs incurred due to the pandemic. So again, just you've got to be in a position where you're able to make this case. If for some reason you're not, maybe somebody else in your organization would be better suited, or you just work in conjunction with them, but make sure that you've got that available. Number 3 here, I'm going to pass over to Tommy.
Sorry, David, I just lost you towards the end there. We're on point 3.
Yep, your specialty.
Yeah, so just as I alluded to on that announcement from March 8th, basically there's 3 different funding envelopes and 3 different application streams, if you will, specifically to this one that OSN is doing on the Emergency Relief Community Sport and Recreation Grant. We have a specific agreement with the ministry on who is eligible. In the spirit of this grant and application, it's to capture those sport and recreation activities that are outside the traditional bounds of the PSO and MSO stream, if you will. And a big catchment there are quite a few sports that actually don't even have provincial sport organizations that are recognized by the ministry. And there's actually also that other piece, recreation activities, is a whole gamut of other activities that are not traditionally captured under the ministry funding. There's also a catchment, you'll see it later in the application, of not just nonprofit, but also for-profit. Could be, for example, a sport academy, type of thing. But this particular box 3, I know it's a little bit wordy, but it really hones in on what this grant is focused on. There's a mention of 2 specific PSOs, but that's just grappling and racquetball respectively. But that's just because of the way that they're actually funded by the ministry, that they're captured within this grant. The last piece there is there's recognition that there's some significant financial losses from certain leagues and teams as it relates to potentially gate receipts and sponsorship. So it's also captured there. So this particular grant is very exciting because of the spectrum of potential submissions that we're going to receive. And that's something that we're really looking forward to. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Tommy. And for those of you, if you have any questions about the specifics, these are external links to PSO information, MSO information. So you've got that at your fingertips as well, just in case you have any doubts or any questions or need information about what specifically those refer to, as well as down here, the Reopening Ontario 2020 and its regulations document from ontario.ca. So the 4th bullet here is my organization can demonstrate financial need due to challenges that have occurred related to COVID. I think that's why most of us are here. So you'll click that. And then number 5, you just have to pick at least one of the following applies to my club organization: increased operating costs, reduction of members and membership revenue, increased facility costs, operating deficits. And of course, anywhere you see other, if you feel that the options that are supplied are not accurate or don't encompass you, by all means, fill in the blank and we're happy to see what you got to say. Finally, you check a box here that says, I understand the emergency relief fund administered by the Ontario Sport Network is to provide financial support for activities and programming not previously supported by other grants. So once you say yes to these, I have a problem here. What happened? I didn't select other and then actually describe something. So I'm going to unclick other. It's very specific that if something is wrong, it will show you what is wrong. So moving on to step 2. Basic information. So as Tommy alluded to moments ago, we ask you if you're profit or not for profit. What best describes your organization? If you are a club or a sports team, it will ask for the full name of your league, no acronyms again. So please put the full name of the league that your team or your club is part of. And then of course, recreational association, sports academy, sport association, and then of course, other. Again, if we had a question in the previous webinars where somebody was an after school program. So they might be under here. So they would describe themselves in that way. Okay. So then is your organization, if your organization has received any other funding, grants or relief from any municipal, provincial or federal programs such as CERB, CEWS, SECRA, SEBA, please describe the nature of the support. Anywhere that you don't have anything to say, you can just put in an NA. Here's a little place where you can give a little character, a little fun. You can just describe your history, highlights, or accolades. One person's exact wording was, is this a place where we can brag about ourselves? The answer is yes, by all means. Have the freedom to express a little about yourselves. You've got 250 words, tell your story. Organization, mailing address. So obviously, where do you operate out of? So this isn't necessarily your personal address. This is where your organization specifically runs out of for their mailing address. Website URL, if you have a website, which most leagues or clubs or academies or whatnot do, please put it in. Please outline the sport, recreational activity, or activities you deliver. So if you're an MSO, you put in your multiple sports. If you're a single sport, put in your sport. If you're a recreational activity or activities, put in your sports. Anything that doesn't apply, just NA. Where do the majority of your participants come from or live? So here you have the ability to just start typing anywhere in Ontario. Pretty much every town, city, and even region will be in there, no matter how small you might think that they are. So go ahead, just fill them in and click, and you'll see that they will start adding. The more the merrier, by all means. If you've got people coming from 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 different places, put them all in, by all means. We'd love to see who's applying. Now we get into the staffing aspect of your organization. How many staff does your organization employ? So there's the full-time in 2019 and 2021, the part-time in 2019 and 2021, and then your volunteers, including your admin and executives, in 2019 and 2021. And very specifically, your full-time can't include part-time or temp staff. Your part-time can't include temp staff. And then your volunteers, it's anything. Another question that's come up before, if you're a seasonal sport, let's just say you're hockey and you only play in the winter and the spring, we're talking about your peak operational time here. So we know that during the summer, you have no employees, you have no volunteers, but during the winter, obviously, when you're operating at peak efficiency, give us the answers in regards to those, okay? And then finally, how many participants or members did your organization have in 2019, 2020, and 2021? So this is obviously going to tell the story about, how COVID and the pandemic has affected you and your participation. Finally, we ask a couple of questions here about who you're providing for. We have a little disclaimer. OSM will not collect, use, or disclose personal information beyond that which is necessary to process applications and administer the funding in accordance with requirements. So we're just basically saying this is just extra information. It doesn't have any bearing on anything, but we are curious. Who do you serve? Who do you have programs for? And then specifically over here, do you provide unique or specialized programming, sports, or activities designed specifically for any underserviced groups? So it's not to say that you don't include them. Obviously, it might be obvious that you could include anyone who comes along and wants to participate, but do you have programs that are specifically designed or targeting specific underserviced groups? And if the answer is any of these, click them. If it's other, you always have the opportunity to describe. And if it's none of the above, feel free to click none of the above. So number 3 here is where we get into the financials. So you will have 2 options here for your organization to complete based on your size and scope. So if you have financial statements, which as I mentioned before, it includes audited year-end financials, approved year-end financials, financial review engagement letters, financial review statements, etc., in PDF, Excel format, you will be able to submit your 2019, 2020, and 2021 statements here. And then you're going to tell the story of what were your annual revenues in each of those 3 years? What were your gate receipts or ticket sales those 3 years? What were your annual sponsorship support dollars those 3 years? And what was your organization's final cash balance each of those 3 years? So you can see, obviously, these need to be consistent with the 3 files that you submit above. And the system, if you accidentally try to submit the same file multiple times, the system will not let you. You have to make sure you have 3 different files for 2019, 2020, and 2021. If you do not have your current 2021 financial statements because they're still in progress, if you can submit a draft or a partial, something along those lines, we can accept that as well. Just obviously you want to make sure that the numbers that you're filling in here are all accurate with the above. Now, if you're an organization that does not have the financial statements, or you keep things a little bit more casual, you have option number 2. You don't have yearly financial statements, but you can provide evidence of financial hardships as a result of the pandemic. So if you click that option, then now you'll see this. My organization has experienced losses of over 5,000 or under 5,000. Please submit 3 of your most substantial examples, And you can show that as JPEGs, GIFs, PNGs, PDFs. So if you just have receipts or invoices or work orders and you want to just take pictures and submit them, by all means, you can do that as long as they're clear and we can read them. And then, of course, please submit a brief description of the hardships your organization has endured as a result, as evidenced by the 3 submitted examples. So here's your opportunity to tell the story about what these 3 documents are, or these 3 files are, and what they mean. So I will go back to number 1 because I have filled all of those in and move on. So when you get to step 4, the final step, you get a little bit of, this is just a quick little blurb that tells you based on what you've selected there. If you have your financial statements, some of the numbers you filled in, it's going to give you a little estimate of a range that you may be eligible for. So based on the information provided, you may be eligible for an emergency relief grant between $10,000 and $150,000. The large range in potential funding is the result of a wide spectrum of applications requesting financial relief and demonstrating financial need due to the impacts of the pandemic. Please note this is not a confirmation of receiving funds. It is a preliminary estimate of eligibility, which will still require review once the application window is closed and all submissions are analyzed. So it's just giving you that basic little example or that basic little piece of information, just saying, look, this is what you may be eligible for, but none of this is in any way, shape, or form a guarantee, because obviously there's still the judging process that takes place after all submissions are submitted. So you now have your final questions, and this is what we like to affectionately call the essay portion of the application. So the first question they're going to ask you is based on the financial and programming impacts of the last few years, to what extent is your organization able to return to pre-pandemic level of operations? So your highest level of urgency would be not at all able. We need to rebuild. We need almost a year. Not very able. We need about 6 months and we could be up and running. Somewhat able, we just need a month or 2, we could be up and running. Or very able, we could be back in action right away. So then the next question, this is where you really get to tell the story. Please provide with detail your financial recovery plan and what your organization will be prioritizing on your journey back to full programming. Your answer to this should include specific examples of how the funds will be used to ensure your organization's sustainability. So we give you 500 words here. So if there's something in section 3, the financials, that you felt like maybe you wanted to just elaborate a little bit more, you can use that as a lead in to say, so as per what we have submitted, that this may, there was something going on in 2017 and 2018 that you didn't see in the 2019 numbers, but it tells a bit of a story. And then obviously, if we get the funds, we're going to do X, Y, and Z in order to, maintain or to return to said feasibility. And then after that, you've got how does your organization positively affect your local community and how this grant improve this? So again, we're encouraging participation, we're great interaction with the community. So tell us a little bit about you. And obviously, if you're in a small town and you might be one of the biggest organizations, you're going to want to talk about that and obviously how you could use the help. The final part is if I am successful, our organization receives a grant, I am willing to provide photos and videos upon request, and my board and committee might be available for interviews. So just an opportunity where if you get the grant, we would like to be able to contact you and, just to have you share your message. And obviously we want to show our appreciation to the government for the generosity in this regard. So at this point now, you're done. All you can either save, as you've been doing along the entire way at the bottom, you can save among every step of the way, and then come back to it later. Or once you're finished, you can submit your application. It will ask you though, once you submit, you cannot edit or withdraw it. So once it's submitted, it's done. So make sure that you're careful and clear before you click OK. So at this point, you could cancel, you could save, you could come back to it. You have until April 29th to submit your final application. But once you submit, you're submitted. So with that, I pass it back over to Tommy.
Great. Can we just maybe end the screen share there?
Yep.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to highlight a couple of key timelines in terms of this grant. Does everyone see that?
Yeah.
Trying to make this larger, 1 sec. All right, there we go. So this grant was launched on this just past Monday. The window closes April 29th at midnight, if you will. So tight timelines, but the way that we've designed this application, as David just expertly went through, we predicted this application with the 4 steps. If you have the relevant material in front of you, it's between, we've timed it with different case studies, about 30 minutes to 50 minutes to finish, to complete. We will have a panel of 4 to 6 people that are reviewing the applications for the better part of a month, sort of 3 weeks. But we were going to turn around this quite quick in terms of notifying applicants by May 31st, with the intent of getting checks out the door to recipients by June 15th. So it's a quick turnaround. It's similar to the turnaround that the other grants in terms of the PSO and MSOs, the $20 million envelope that I spoke about before. So this is, again, very, very exciting. I want to open the floor now to questions, just looking at the time. So we could probably field anywhere from 5 to 8 to 10 questions. So Bianca, over to you. If people can just use the icon in terms of just the raise hand, like I just did there in the far with the hand up, that's how we'll sequence the questions. So over to you, Bianca.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, if you can just raise the hand up, and then I will unmute you when I see that the hand is up.
For anyone who doesn't know, if you look at the bottom of your Zoom, there's a little reactions button. The raise hand icon is in that area. And in fact, if you do anything, even the party hat, I think we'll know that you want to talk.
No questions at the moment. Oh, there's one question. So I'll unmute you right now.
Hi, I'm from a curling club in Northwestern Ontario. And sorry, I missed the beginning of your presentation because I had trouble logging on. Is this grant available to clubs who did receive loans during the pandemic? We had received money from the government that we do have to pay a portion of or all of it back.
So is this relative to a small business loan, like anything? Because if it was via your PSO, that's something different. But could maybe you describe the loan that you're, and when was that actually issued to you?
In 2021, we have to pay it back by 2023. And
Okay.
I think they were granting 30,000 and paying back. We had to pay back 10.
Okay. I think if that was related to loss of staff or something around a small business, this is actually, that's why there's a couple places in the application where you make note of that. But this grant is specific for your operations and your programming. And if it's unrelated, you can definitely apply for this grant still. The only thing that you should maybe verify is if you're a club that is a member of your provincial association, so the Ontario Curling Council, so you pay dues to your PSO. They have their own granting stream that they've launched, that they're actually investing and supporting their member clubs. So this particular grant is outside that stream. So okay. We can also follow up after this webinar with a direct email to grants@ontariosportnetwork.ca to dig into that a little bit deeper. But your question is actually really good. David and I have fielded a couple of these questions before where people are saying, I received a grant. Does it automatically disqualify me? Depending on the nature of that grant, and if it was for a different component of your programming, it doesn't necessarily exclude you. Well, the challenge here is we don't want people applying for this grant and receiving, like thinking that they can get a grant twice for the same activity, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. David, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to ask do you know if the grant you're talking about, like, I don't know if you saw the beginning of the actual demo, but we referred to CERB, CEWS, SECRA, SEBA. Like, do you know if it falls in any of those?
You know what? Our finance guy is in Winnipeg. They had a baby prematurely, so I'm just kind of jumping in. So honestly, I don't know. The accountant is out of the building. So I'll have a look at the grant application and forward it to our board and let them have a look at it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, so our next question will come from Chris.
Hi there. I'm just wondering, we're a not-for-profit community health center that offers an after-school program and a summer camp. But I'm not too sure if this applies to us directly or not, because it's not the only services that we offer, and we don't charge anything for our program, so we didn't really have a revenue loss related to that. So I'm just wondering. My boss sent me to this just to be like, oh, take a look at it and see, but it seems to be more for clubs, associations, leagues that would have incurred financial loss during the pandemic, and I'm not too sure we apply.
I think you answered your question. Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you for sharing your question, because the nature of this grant is all about financial need. So those organizations, clubs, teams respectively that can demonstrate financial loss and hardship, and this grant will help get those organizations back on track. If you have experienced no revenue loss and you're sort of neutral, it's not aligned to the spirit of this grant, of what this grant is supposed to do. Your question too, because we've had some queries before where people are perhaps not directly responsible for activities or their sport and recreation programming. This grant is targeted towards those organizations that directly deliver or are directly responsible for those activities. So it's not meant to be a sort of redirect or anything like that. But I think based on what you shared with us, I don't think you're eligible.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question there, Chris?
Sure.
Do any of your programs generate any form of revenue, whether it's through ticket sales, sponsorships, anything to that effect?
No, none whatsoever. Everything is reinvested into the program essentially, so we don't make any money.
Oh, no, I didn't mean for profit. I just meant are you generating any revenues whatsoever with those programs?
No, not that I know of. I can talk to the programs that we do, and we don't charge anything, nor do we generate revenue from gate or anything that would be related to that.
Yeah, I was trying to be creative there, but I think Tommy's original answer is probably exactly right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so our next question is going to come from Betty.
Okay, hi. We're a small social and athletic club in a small town called Harrowsmith. And so I wasn't able to get in on the very beginning because I was having troubles. I ended up having to go to your website to join this because the link that was sent needed a passcode and I couldn't figure it out. So anyway, my question is, during the pandemic, we have a small membership, and then we have different events that all sort of bring in a bit of revenue for the cost of, all of the expenses of the organization. So is that what this is meant to be for? So we had money in our reserves that carried us through the pandemic, but now those reserves are gone. Is that what this is for, or is this for new programs, or I'm just not sure.
You've nailed it there. It's if you've accessed your reserves to sort of just, I just use the word, stay afloat or just continue on with some muted programming, this grant is available for you to get yourself back on your feet, to hit the ground running this season and beyond, to get yourself back on track. It's the PSOs are often calling this the recharge grant. So I think the story that you've shared with us is a decline over the last couple of years in terms of your programming, your membership, and
Right.
using your funds to sort of just keep afloat. This is an opportunity to receive an injection of funds to activate, almost to return your programming to your level that was pre-pandemic. This
Okay.
program is actually not for new programs that actually started in 2020. It's for ones that existed before the pandemic. So
Yeah.
the way that you described your situation, Betty, is you're actually like one of the target audiences for this grant.
That's exactly right.
Perfect.
Yeah. So you see,
That's-
Betty, that's exactly the story being told here. It's how did your revenues go? How were your sponsorship support, your total gate and ticket? So everything you just talked about, and then your final cash balance, you tell the story about how you dipped into the reserves in order to maintain yourselves during the pandemic. And now you're basically starting from scratch. That's exactly the spirit of it.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's excellent. Okay, that's good. I didn't know if, because we had the reserves to pay for electricity and, all of those things, if it's, if it was sort of, okay, well, yay, good job, you had reserves. Now, bye-bye now.
Yeah, no, that's why we're looking at sort of the historical to tell us the story of what you once were and what happened over the last 2 years. No, thanks for that. That's a great question, and it's a great case study of how this grant can help you.
For a
That's
small
excellent.
organization in Harrowsmith, I'd like to say congratulations. Good job on having those reserves.
Well, it wasn't much, but it got us through, barely, but it got us through.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
So one more question we have from Lisa.
Hi there. Hi there. So I am a board member of a brand new, well, not brand new. So we started in 2019 as a gymnastics club, recreational gymnastics in Fort Frances, Ontario. So 2019, 2020 was our first season. That was cut short by a few months because of COVID. Then we ended up not having a season the very next year. And then we started up again this year. So I don't think we can really demonstrate any historical numbers that would justify any losses that we incurred, but we literally lost a whole season. So no sponsorship for the season, no fundraising or anything like that. So I'm thinking that we probably don't fit in with this grant, but I just want to clarify before I go back to the board and say, we are a member of Gymnastics Ontario, so we are getting a little bit of that money from them that they're dispersing to the member clubs. So that might be all that we're really eligible for.
Great question, Lisa. Yes, that is the case. We want to make sure that this emergency relief fund is channeled towards those captured outside the PSO and MSO stream. So in your specific case, if your PSO, which is Gymnastics Ontario, has its own relief fund that they're contributing investments to member organizations, you can access that, but you can't access this as well. So there's you can't do both channels. You can only do one. And I think we also it's in our frequently asked questions. One of the last ones, I think, you may not be eligible for this grant because you're receiving the PSO stream of grant relief, but there's also other agencies that we could direct you towards. Jumpstart is one of them, for example, Canadian Tire, that does community relief grants. So that's something on our website that you want to look into, but specific to this and OSN Emergency Relief Fund, it's for those captured outside the provincial sport organization stream. But if there was based on what you said about 2019, that you still had you were incorporated or you started your business during that year, David, the way that we've developed this application, it still is, if you weren't getting the PSO stream, you could still apply to this because you still had some sort of activity. You still had demonstrated that even though it was obviously a shortened season before the pandemic hit, you could still put in information that would tell the story about need and costs incurred during the pandemic. Correct?
Thanks for clarifying.
A great question, Lisa. We have maybe time for, is there one more,
Yep.
Bianca?
We have Paul here, so I'll just unmute Paul.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
Most of my questions have sort of been answered, but I'm assuming PSO would be Ontario Minor Hockey or Ontario Hockey Federation.
Yes.
And we haven't heard anything, nothing from them. Are they on the same timeline to produce, by April 29th?
Yes, they are. Well, their application may be the ones that I've been seeing. Again, there's 64, I think, PSOs. So there's a lot of them. And I think in hockey's case, I think there's 4 or 5 because just the way the federation, the association, and then there's the women's hockey organization itself as well. I've seen a range of different timelines, if you will. Some extend into early May in terms of their applications. So it being April 7th, there could be a chance that some PSOs have not put their grant guidelines up yet. In fact, we did have someone on a Zoom call on Tuesday where their PSO had not, but it's coming for sure. I would inquire with your respective PSO just to ask about those upcoming timelines. The time frame that we've been given is most of the funds need to be out the door by the end of May or sort of mid-June. So it could be the case, Paul, that your guidelines are coming very shortly.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second here. Is there any, you said you can't draw twice, obviously, but can you apply and then what if, for instance, you didn't get it through your PSO? Could you apply? I'm just looking at it. How do you, you might get one, but not the other type thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. The way that this application has been designed is there are certain situations where it could be for a league, for example, where David was mentioning this before too, the question there around gate receipts or sponsorship loss, there still could be the opportunity for a member organization or member club to apply to OSN's grant because their financial loss and their financial what they're needed in terms of getting back up to speed is outside the PSO funding amount, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So we can maybe take this offline, but it's only in unique situations where that occurs. But as a member club of your PSO, that $20 million envelope that's divided amongst 64 PSOs, that's the proper channel for almost all of the member clubs.
Okay, I just had one more question. Now I'm drawing a blank here. Okay.
And just so you know, we will be cross-referencing as well. Sorry, Paul, but we will be if it's a certain sport and when we filter through all the different applications, we will be also consulting with our PSO colleagues because we are united as one sector to make sure that there's not an occurrence where there's a double application, for example. So there will be some cross-referencing happening.
Okay. I got my question, sorry. So all the PSOs, will they have a similar format, a drop down with similar questions, or can they can they have sort of their own standards, I guess is the question I have.
No, great question. Yes,
your thing looks pretty good.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's definitely David and his team. They've done a great job, but it's I've seen different application formats. Some are like 1 page, 2 page, some may be a little bit more elaborate, but it definitely depends on the PSO. But ours is just a little different, just because the nature of our reach and the spectrum of potential submissions that we're going to receive across a wide range of sports and recreation activities. So yeah, it will be different for sure. But most of the ones that I've seen, Paul, they're still asking for proof of financial hardship, whether that's financial records or invoices related to PPE or staffing or whatever expenses incurred during the pandemic type thing.
Yeah, like in our organization, our losses are going to, I'm glad the person asked about we're drawing into our reserves this year because we decided not to raise our registration to try and draw more kids in. Didn't pan out. So now we're going to look at a deficit at the end of the year, which we've never looked at in 50 years. So I'm glad to hear that that is sort of looked after in the program.
Great. Thanks for your
Thank
question,
you.
Paul. Thank you. I'm just going to put this up right now because just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. There is a direct email address there. You can see grants@ontariosportnetwork.ca. We're getting a lot of emails every day on this specific grant. We will answer your question quite quickly. And then maybe even sometimes if we need to set up a call because maybe it's more of a detailed question about your application, we can set that up as well. But thanks everyone for coming tonight and for joining. You will see on our website as well, we were planning a 5th Zoom in 2 weeks' time. Thanks everyone.